Hi everyone, this is Ronnie. I thought I'd make a maybe this is a weird video, but it's about myself as a meat eater. I don't know if I can put this up. Yeah, let's maybe try and make that go like that. I've got my guitar here, but I'm not going to play any the guitar. Like what kind of meat eater was that? So I am basically a fruitarian. I eat only fruits, vegetables. I mean, I'm open to eating vegetables, nuts, and seeds. I just don't eat them that much at the moment. Well, at right this minute, and I would really call myself a raw vegan over the last 10 years. Like that's what I've been doing the last 10 years. Um, Before that, I was basically a vegan-ish for a little while, but really I went started to go raw as I was going vegan. And before that, I was vegetarian. I think I was vegetarian for about a year. Um, Maybe a year and a half, maybe even 2 years, but I think it was quite short. Actually, I think it might have been a year. And prior to that, I was a meat eater. I'm guessing up to the age of 25, 26. Started on Raw in 2011. What age was I then? 27? Something like that, 27. So 26, 25, 26, somewhere around then, I ate meat my whole life, you know. And just in case people don't think that like maybe there's something different with me or whatever, and dairy products and all that. And I ate meat every day without exception for my entire life up to that point. There is not a single day I didn't eat meat, as far as I'm aware. I never had a vegetarian day. I barely had a vegetarian meal. I was not scared of eating meat. I was not concerned about eating meat. I was not ethically that problematically connected with the concept of eating meat as an animal because everyone else was doing it really. So I didn't really think about it, and there was other things in life to think about. And I didn't like. There's a few things I did. I didn't really eat much fish. Didn't really eat much fish. Didn't like fish that much, and I didn't eat much lamb. I think didn't really like lamb. But I ate red meat. I ate chicken primarily. Those are two. Some pork or bacon. Processed meats for sure. And I really basically didn't see like kind of didn't feel I was really having a meal or really full or really finished if I hadn't eaten meat. You know, and I don't know if people maybe think that maybe I never ate meat or I had a different relationship with meat and dairy products or what have you, but I don't think I did than anyone else before I changed. And the weird thing looking back is I remember eating meat, and if I really look back at it, like not entirely enjoying it. It sounds kind of weird to say, but I remember like when I started to realize, wait, that's a vein, and I would see a vein, and that would just kind of disgust me a little bit. Um, I remember the fat on it. I never liked the fat. Like I always tried to cut the fat off. Hated it when you would get bacon or something and it was just all fat. It was all soft and rubbery. Really just hated that. Um, Obviously, if you've grilled meat and stuff, it smells terrible the next day. Like it smells really bad on the pan and all that the next day. Um, And so I just always remember like processed meat was like the best option because it didn't show all the visible signs of like the blood, the veins, the fat. You know, it was just an easier thing to eat in a sense. Um, there was a point in my life where I started to become really interested in cooking, and to this point that I was almost thinking maybe I could be a chef. Like that was So this is another, like, if people think I was never interested in food, never had an interest, like, I wasn't like that. I was very into food and into flavor, and I would read books of chefs' books, like not their recipe books, their actual biographies and stuff. Like I got interested at that level, and there was restaurant reviews in the Sunday, in the Herald magazine or something on a Sunday. There was a restaurant reviewer. He's probably still going, and he had his top 10 or top 25 list of best restaurants, maybe in Scotland, but definitely in Glasgow. And I, at least once, um, I remember going to one of them. I don't think I went to that many on the list, but I think I went to a few, tried to visit a few at least. No, I went to more than a few. Yeah, I'm just remembering back, and went on my own. Really went to these because at the time, like a lot of my friends didn't really have money or whatever, so neither did I really. But I was prepared to spend a little bit more for a nice meal or to experience it. So I did that, and went to some expensive restaurants. Not very expensive, but slightly expensive, and had the food. And I remember just kind of thinking, well, it just tastes like food. Like it just tasted like, what I was used to, sort of. Didn't taste that much different or that much specialer. Didn't feel that much different. Um, then I go home, learn to cook stuff, make stuff. I remember making my own steaks and things like that. I worked in a supermarket at one point and went up and would get a steak or something, and no, had no concerns, by the way, about any health implications about any of this, because I'll tell you why. Because I gave up sugar when I was early 20s, 22, 23 something. Gave up sugar 100%, and I just thought that my health was protected from that point on. I thought the whole problem was sugar, and nothing to do with animal products. And I remember making a big steak, fried in butter, all that stuff, and then just being on the couch after it, just like no energy, Kind of weird, huh? Um, so if I went out to a restaurant, I always had something with meat. I like never had the vegetarian option, as far as I remember. Um, if I had pizza, probably usually would have some kind of meat on it. Sometimes not, to be honest, but everything I had was usually meat focused. So I wasn't like a lot of the other people that say like, oh, I never liked meat, never liked the flavor of it. It's not that, but you learn like it's not really the flavor. Like it's obviously all this flavor is added to it. I remember as well, like I remember a few meals. I remember going to South Africa and being in this guy's house in the bush. We were driving with a friend and we stopped off in this place, like in the desert. This guy had massive amount of land in the desert, but it's like I guess the land doesn't really cost much or something because it's desert sort of thing. So he had this massive place. He was a bit of a crazy guy. I'd love to see that guy again. He was kind of an older man. I don't know if he'd still be alive, but he um he was crazy and funny. He was a white guy out in South Africa, and he would go out on his van or whatever, and he would shoot animals, springboks and stuff like that. And we went out with him, and I was traveling with this friend, and we were both kind of brought up in the city. And I said to him, if he gave you the gun, would you shoot one of these deer? And he looked concerned and looked back at me and he said, would you? And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Probably might have, to be honest, at the time. And the girl we were with, had been brought up on a farm, so she was kind of used to killing animals. So it wasn't that new to her. But it was a weird thing. Like I've not been around a lot of farmers in that way, but you know, they were going out at night with. I think we had like night vision goggles or something. I'm kind of remembering this all a little bit. Yeah, so that's all kind of fun, I guess. But he made us a meal, and it was meat, and there was other things on it, but it was made from like animals that were living on his land or something. You know, probably stuff that he caught himself. I think he also gave us like biltong, which is the dried meat. He had tons of that stuff, and we ate tons of that stuff on that trip. Tons of dried meat, that biltong. Um, and we had uh, we had this meal, and it was a fantastic meal. Definitely up to that point in my life, it was like one of the best meals I ever had. The context of the whole situation was great. I mean, we said grace. He was a very good host. He took his time over the meal. Like it took a long time for him to make it, but the meat definitely tasted different. Like I understand what people say about like meat tastes different in terms of what the animal eats, but these were a different animal maybe than I'd ever eaten. I don't know. I think that might have been lamb as well. Weirdly, and I never usually liked lamb at the time, you know. But everything about that was really a nice experience, you know. At that time, in terms of the context of where I was at that point, um, but there's always this thing in the back of your mind, like there's kind of a disgust that somehow you're numbing down. Like this is a dead carcass. That's weird. It's just weird that you just see this dead carcass, and if it had a head on it, you would be absolutely grossed out. It's just different enough that you can kind of put up with it, and then it all gets pulled apart, and there's weird colors on it, and it's just all like strange. You cut it into small pieces so that it's kind of digestible or whatever. It's so strange looking back. It's so strange. But I eat meat every day till I was 25, 26. It wasn't animal rights whatsoever. Always kind of felt like I might end up going in that direction, but never really felt ready for it. I remember a friend who was into veganism for environmental reasons, and he made this curry thing, and he was talking to me a little bit about it, and I had no, absolutely zero awareness of any of that at the time. Zero awareness. And he made this curry, and I was like, oh, it's got no meat in it. I remember that memory of like feeling like, oh, it's not got any meat in it, you know? And had it, and I was like, well, this was actually quite good. I didn't become a vegan after. I didn't even change anything after that, you know? Didn't change at all. So I can completely see why people take a long time to get this. I completely see it. But I've given meat a chance. You know, I gave meat a chance. I ate it every day. I was not against it. I didn't. I don't really know if I particularly had a problem with it. Like my digestion wasn't particularly good when I was younger, but there's a lot of reasons for that. Um, but basically, what happened was when I was going to this, why did I give it up? Why did I give up animal products? Um, Gave up meat. Let me think. When I was going to this psychic development group, mediumship development circle. I don't know what you call it. I don't really know how much the spiritualist movement is something, whether it's worldwide or not. But in the UK, there's this like spiritualist movement, which is kind of like it's got this traditional element to it, like a church service. But then someone will come on and they will do mediumship, where they display mediumship, demonstration of mediumship. So they'll stand at the front, they'll lead the whole thing pretty much, and they'll start to connect with spirit and then try and give a message. To someone or some people or whatever. Mediumship. You probably know what mediumship is. And I didn't really realize that that's what I was going to. Like, I just saw this sign for like a meditation class. So I started going to this, and I found out that's what they were doing, and it was seances or whatever. They would do stuff like that. And I wasn't that interested in that. I was interested in meditation, but I'd kind of been drawn to this place, and I thought, okay, I'll go to this and see what it's all about. And I spent about a year or more going to that, and a little bit longer going to different psychic development and mediumship stuff. Maybe I'll do a video about that. And they said to me when I went in, they said, if you continue to work with spirit, you might change your diet, which is kind of interesting. And I thought, okay, that's fine. And I was like, I'd been meditating for 4 or 5 years, maybe 3 years. Like I 4 years I'd been meditating every day up to that point. I went along to a class because I wanted to see if I could learn something more or develop quicker. And that was probably a mistake on my part, is to some degree. I don't know if it really pushed me forward or held me back, but it did get me to pretty much change my diet, because they said you might change your diet if you do this, and I was like, okay, that's interesting. But I didn't really take them seriously, because I'm like, hey, I've been meditating for ages and not changed my diet. But one day I came out of that class and didn't feel like eating meat. And I'd been thinking about it, actually. I started to think about it, and then I just didn't feel like eating it, and I just thought, and I just never ate it again, basically, with very little effort. Didn't really try. It's not that difficult to give up meat if you've got all the other foods that you can eat, And the animal products, I was gradually giving them up, just because I was making an intuitive choice to go to eat stuff that made me feel better or whatever. And then I figured out veganism, and I made the commitment to cut them out completely. So that's my little story with meat. I've not eaten any meat in probably 12 years or something like that, 12, 13 years. I don't know why people try and base their diet on meat. I think that all that's not a good choice, but that's the way. I don't think I'm missing anything. It's flesh. That's what it is. And I think we meat eaters don't get that. It's like the flesh of another animal. It's disgusting. So I think you should give it up. Anyway, thanks for watching.